All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pet Working, a podcast focused on animal health and pet care. I'm here today with Jeffrey Bishop Hill, the SVP of Marketplace at Vet, and we're going to talk a little bit about a key issue plaguing the industry that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, and that is veterinary staffing shortages and veterinary burnout. Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time, and welcome to Pet Working.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Excited to talk with you.
Yeah, no, this is great. For the audience's benefit, Jeff and I met at Western Vet a few months back, and guys put on a very nice reception there, and it was a great chance to get to learn about Vet. And I think one of the key themes that we saw, throughout the show at Western Vet, Jeff, was the idea of work-life balance, veterinary burnout, consolidator models, relief models, and was really interested to see Vet's take on this and your introduction of a fairly unique, heretofore unreplicated veterinary relief model. So do you want to give us a little bit of background on Vet and
Yeah,
fill in everybody on what you're doing?
of course. Happy to do so. RU is a platform that connects veterinarians and vet technicians with hospitals who are looking to fill relief shifts. So basically, it's independent contractor work. And we kind of think of our space in the animal healthcare industry as a disruptor in traditional staffing models. So the impact of like the shortage of vets and vet techs has been felt actually for many years. And so we started up in 2018 with the goal of, helping hospitals find real quality talent in a super easy to use way. So think of it kind of like a dating profile in a sense, right? So the hospital has a profile. It shows kind of what it's like to work there, what their culture is like, what the expectations are of the shift that the vet or the vet tech is going to be taking, i.e., is it general wellness, is it surgery, et cetera. And then vets and vet techs get to come onto the platform, take a look at the shifts that the hospitals post, and basically request them if they sound like they're a good fit. Then the hospital takes a look at the person requesting the shift, and if it's a good fit, it's a match, then they accept that shift, and the vet or vet tech will come work that shift. And then it's a 360-degree review process. So each of those actors, the hospital and the vet or vet tech, will go ahead and rate and review the hospital. And those are all public, so everybody can kind of see what everything looks like. So yeah, that's RU in a very quick nutshell.
Yeah, no, that's great. And from your guys' perspective, the economic benefit to you is you guys are taking a small percentage in exchange for providing the technology platform and the marketplace through which those transactions are conducted, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a platform fee. So the vet and vet tech never pay anything, and the hospital actually does not pay anything either. It's free to set up profiles on both sides of the platform. The hospital will only pay when they accept the shift. So that's how that works.
Okay. So that it isn't taken out of the vet's pay. The hospital pays a premium to you in addition to paying the vet.
That's correct. Yep. So what the vet or the vet tech see as the daily rate that they're getting on the platform itself, either the app or the website, that's exactly what they'll get. There's no kind of like hidden gotchas in that area. Very transparent.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, I mean, you could almost liken it to an Uber or a DoorDash. You can sign up, take shifts, sort of translating veterinary and vet tech work into the gig economy, so to speak.
We like to think, yes, so that's true. We like to think of ourselves as a little bit more of a community builder in this space as well. So it's not kind of one of those like, you go and make a delivery and it's a one and done. There's no interaction with anybody. We host continuing education events across the country. We do happy hours and meetups so that vets and vet techs can meet and mingle with each other, in kind of like a safe, fun space. And we're really there's also a digital community. We've got exclusive Facebook groups where actually kind of interesting. Vets go and they have like clinical discussions. They might like post a picture of like a surgery that they've recently done, and kind of ask for feedback, that sort of thing. So we're really about building community. As being an independent contractor, vet or vet tech can be a bit lonely because you're moving from hospital to hospital. So we take the extra step to build that sense of community as well.
Sure. Sure. And maybe that's a good jumping off point, Jeff. I think a lot of people probably don't necessarily understand. And I know the first time we chatted, you pointed me to the TED Talk with Dr. Melanie Bowden. Also, that there's lots of good articles about there. There's one that came out last summer in the Atlantic on, why it's so hard to find a vet. But I think for a lot of people, they look at it from, their own perspective, right? They look at it as the perspective of a pet owner, and why can't I find veterinary services? Why is it so hard for me to get my pet into the, emergency clinic? Why is it, why am I booking 4 weeks out to get an appointment for my vet at my local practice? And I think, people obviously lead busy lives, but one of the things I wanted to call attention to here, and I think, is probably a big part of Ruvet's mission, correct me if I'm wrong, but, it is the fact that there needs to be an appreciation and an understanding for what vets are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And I think, some of the statistics out there, they're not very comfortable for people to reconcile with, but the fact that vets are, the second most, the profession that is second most likely to commit suicide after police officers, that female veterinarians are 3.5 times more likely than the general population to take their own life. The fact that you have this population where people are leaving the profession because of burnout and fatigue. I think bringing that to the forefront and helping people understand why models like Ruvet are so important in terms of giving that sense of community and giving relief to veterinary clinics. It's a very important model, and something, in our work here at Maya Strategy that we see, you see the consolidation models, you see, that there's certainly the monetary side of the business, but so often what goes unseen in that, dollars and cents analysis is the underlying issues of mental health, burnout, and
that's exactly Rue is a very mission-driven company, right? So we want to empower vets and vet technicians to be able to have a manageable work-life balance, because it is that unmanageable balance when you're in a situation where maybe you're locked into a multiple year agreement with a hospital or a big corporation as a vet or vet tech, that you don't really get to control your hours. And that can be very overwhelming, right? And it's for good reason. Like obviously the economics have to make sense in a hospital for it to work. But the other thing that's happening is, a vet's day could be, 14 hours, 16 hours, something crazy, because you might do a few surgeries, you have to follow up, you have to make sure that they're stable, et cetera. There's all kinds of post-care. And then you're going to have people coming to the, hospital with emergency situations that haven't booked an appointment. And like, how hard is it to turn away an animal that's been injured, or, something like that, or hit by a car, for example. It's just not very easy to say no to situations like that. And so schedules just get impacted so quickly on a daily basis. And what we hope to do at Rue is, again, give a clinician the opportunity to kind of control that, right? So they set their own hours, and they are able to, kind of go in and out in a little bit of a more manageable way than, again, if they were working for either a big corporation, or even if they own their own practice. I mean, you're still facing, clients really who don't understand that you're, also a human and like need a break and need that family time, need the release. They just care about, their animal, which makes sense, right? So it's a really tricky line that all these clinicians or vets and vet techs are walking, and we hope to help define that a little bit more.
Yeah. And I think on the flip side of it too, I mean, obviously that's a huge benefit for the vets that are on your platform is they can take more of that contractor approach. They can remove that burden of feeling tied to their own practice or to a corporate practice or something like that. But at the same time, they're providing relief for the people who still own their own practice or who are in, a large corporate owned, whether that's PE or, one of the larger hospital chains. They're able to go in and maybe give them, a day off or, help them out, so that 12-hour day doesn't turn into a 16-hour day.
Yep, and that's exactly what sort of the hospitals that use us. That's one of the ways that they absolutely incorporate our services. Is hey, they're if it's a two vet practice and one of them is getting married, hey, there's an opportunity for a vet to come in from Brew and help out for that week or two that they're out. Also, very popular during the holidays and other special events. But I will say this. Our bread and butter is actually just kind of like regular traditional shifts. The demand for vet care obviously increased dramatically over the course of the pandemic with, tons and tons of folks purchasing or adopting pets. And so, basically like every hospital is just to its max. And that's all across the US, right? We're finding, we operate right now at about 20 markets. And we're finding that, the vast majority of them just don't have enough vet or vet techs who live in the area to take on the load of all of the new patients. And something common you'll see out there too is that like hospitals cannot accept new patients. And that's just because they're literally all to their max and they want to try to provide as much care as possible. So that's like a great example of where, Rue can step in and help with additional doctors or techs to help with that patient flow.
Yeah. I mean, I think the root of the problem here that a lot of, and I don't know that there's necessarily a single solution that's going to address it, but there's a significant shortage of veterinarians in this country. Obviously you alluded to, the influx in new pet adoptions during COVID. I think simultaneously we saw people, vets who are reaching retirement age decide, what, I'm going to take an early retirement. It's not worth it for me to stay on and deal with the hassles of providing care during COVID, risk getting COVID myself. Similarly, the veterinary profession skews very heavily female, and female veterinarians with children. We're put in a position where I can continue to go to work or I can stay home with my kids who don't have school open. I can I can relate to that very personally right now. After 3 years in, my son was home with COVID last week, and my wife and I were juggling care. So we're seeing a downtick in veterinarians. I think the statistic Dr. Bowden referenced in her TED Talk was we're seeing a decrease in veterinarians on about a 5% a year basis. Whereas I saw another article in the Atlantic where a study that I think it was Mars ran is projecting that we're going to need 41,000 additional veterinarians to meet demand by 2030. So, certainly there is a demand for, these relief vet shifts, but I guess the question I would ask you is there at a certain point, is it sort of just a shell game where we have vets going into a contract model, but we're still short the total number of veterinarians? And what do you see as the potential remedies for that situation?
Yeah, so at the kind of the top of your question there, you mentioned the schools. I think there's only about 30 or so accredited veterinary schools in the country. So that means that not even every major metro has a nearby, veterinary school. So that does make it challenging. And I think you're right. Just overall in general, there's been a decrease in the number of people coming into those schools. So, the real challenge is at the quote unquote top of the funnel. We need more students to go into the profession. And so what Rue does, and also like we see a number of our clients doing this as well, is, you know, we're attending all of the you know, school career fairs. We're going to every conference that we possibly can to get our name out there at the top of the funnel. Rue actually has a free to use part of our app and website, Rue University, and it has postings for internships and externships. So basically, like anybody can post for free, any veterinary clinic can post for free, so that students can learn more about what they're offering. So fundamentally, the top of the funnel is where we have to be focusing in order to get more people into, you know, just the veterinary profession in general. But once they're there, I think like a lot of these groups, including Rue, have realized that we've got to be front and center there right at the beginning of that veterinarian or vet tech's journey, to get our name out there and try to attract them, because it is a very, very competitive space when there's a shortage, obviously, on the sort of, you know, supply side, if you will. So yeah, you're correct. We have to figure out a way to attract more students and folks into the profession, and we think that Rue is doing that basically by providing an opportunity for a work-life balance that doesn't currently exist. So that's where we think that we come through to help.
Yeah. Do you see? I think it's a great point, and you know, I think it you know, when you hear, you know, somebody like Dr. Bowden, you know, talking about her day as a veterinarian of, you know, I get there at 7:45 and I've already got a you know, a client with a dying pet that I have to attend to, and then, you know, the pet, you know, they're unable to save it, and then she has a tech, you know, coming waving her at like 8:20 because there's her 8 o'clock appointment is upset that she's 20 minutes late because she was trying to provide care to this dying pet. And that's just the start of the day. And, you know, as she goes on, it's, you know, she talks about how, you know, well, we take, you know, these drop-off appointments for, you know, people who need emergency care, but, you know, aren't on the schedule. And so I try to fit them in where I can through the day. And, you know, it is not a linear day that I think a lot of people in a traditional office, you know, business setting can relate to. I mean, I think as business professionals, we're all aware of fire drills, but you know, in the context of the veterinary profession, you're dealing with, you know, in a lot of cases, life and death of a pet on a day-to-day basis, and you can't always provide the best care, either because the client doesn't have insurance or doesn't have the financial means to pay for the best course of treatment, or they may be advocating for you to save their pet when, you know, compassionately the best thing to do for that animal is euthanasia. And but either way, that takes an incredible physical toll, and then you layer that in with, you know, I think Dr. Bowden said, you know, regularly she works 50 to 80 hours a week. And because of the student debt pressure, you know, she, in addition to her own practice, is taking on extra shifts. That doesn't paint a picture of work-life balance that I can, you know, that I would think anybody would want to go into. I mean, not only are you, you know, you've gone to school for however many years and incurred, I think she said, $286,000 worth of debt to become a veterinarian. And then once you become a veterinarian, you're faced with, I'm the face of my practice. I've got to deal with all of my clients who want what's best for their pets, but I'm not always
and emergencies, and the list, it can go on and seem really, it can seem scary. And again, I think that's why, I mean, student loan debt is a whole other issue, which you and I have talked about before, and just the price of education in America. But I will say that there's obviously a ton of positives for veterinarians as well, you know, coming into the industry. And again, like, there is a lot of emerging technology, and the goal of a lot of these platforms like Rue, like ourselves, of course, but there's other platforms and there's other tools out there as well that are coming out. And the goal of them is to reduce that stress on the clinician. So, again, hopefully that's a nice continuing trend that again helps make the space more attractive. But I will say, for like people that are thinking about coming into the industry, it's definitely not all doom and gloom. There's just a lot of challenges out there because, there's just a shortage right now. But I do think, it's certainly an in-demand profession. So you're not going to have a trouble, finding work if you come into the industry. That's for sure. Wages are going up for vets and vet techs. We certainly see that ourselves. We have kind of a dynamic pricing model, and we definitely can see the overall rates are going up. And so that's there's definitely some positives too. And I think that there are a lot of wonderful companies out there that are not only trying to make it more bearable, but trying to make the industry a really exciting space to be in.
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to, right? Because, you don't get into a profession like this unless you have a true drive, a true calling, a true passion and love for animals. And, I think it was so prevalent to me to see the number of companies at Western Vet that were focused on work-life balance. But,
yeah.
I think it's bearing in mind all, and I don't want to dwell on the downside or scare anybody away from becoming a veterinarian, but, I do think it is that recognition of, we need to provide a better way for people in the veterinary profession. And having that North Star like Ruvet does to say, what, that's what we're focused on, is making sure that our vets have a better work-life balance. And maybe it is this contractor model where you don't have to worry about, the being tied to a given clinic or being tied to a contract or seeing, I have all this student debt and these long 16-hour days and I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. I think that's a great thing to offer them. I'd be curious to your opinion, because I thought the other really neat piece of the TED Talk that you referred to with Dr. Baden was her call for responsible pet ownership, and it being sort of a two-way contract between pet owners and the veterinarian, and that, we can't be pet owners that are just going in only when something's wrong. We need to be doing these annual well visits. You need to be, getting pet insurance. And to me, the lack of adoption of pet insurance continues to baffle me, that, we sit at 2.5%, 3%. But, that's a huge rallying cry for me, is that, I think there needs to be more adoption of pet insurance out there. I'd be curious,
Yeah.
I don't.
I totally agree with you, and I agree to that calling per se as well. I think, first of all, your pets are like humans, right? They wellness is so important for preventative medicine, and so taking your animals in for at least an annual physical is super important, because you catch things in blood panels, etc. That could be issues that really explode into something catastrophic and costly. And so there are, kind of segueing into pet insurance, that is a industry that is growing like wildfire. So if you want to invest in something, that is an excellent place to go to. But
better than veterinary consolidation?
Yeah, well, that too. But animal insurance is really critical, and it also like helps make those kind of scary, potentially expensive situations a lot more digestible and easy to handle. And veterinary insurance, by the way, too, it can be very, very efficient from a cost perspective. Really, there are some plans out there, especially if you get it for a puppy, that are really, really affordable. And so it's definitely something that on the consumer side of things, pet owner side of things, that we would definitely encourage that as well.
Yeah, I would, in addition to managing Maya's animal health and pet care practice, I also do our finance and insurance. So pet insurance sits at the intersection of that for me. And I would wholeheartedly echo, get pet insurance when you get a new puppy, a new kitten, when you adopt a pet, the big limitation with pet insurance is those pre-existing conditions. And if you have a pet with a clean bill of health, everything from that point forward is going to be covered. And I will say, everybody I know who has pet insurance, I've had pet insurance since we adopted Peony, who's sitting here next to me 6 years ago. And we've come out ahead every year. And it's made that in my opinion, it removes the barrier of, do I want to take my pet to the vet? Do I not want to? Because it's going to be covered. And you can get, like you said, you get out ahead of things that otherwise could be, catastrophic health conditions. We adopted Peony as she was a stray from South Carolina. And when we adopted her, we were told she was heartworm negative. And a few weeks after we had her, she kind of pulled one of her groin muscles, and so we brought her into the vet. And when we were getting they did some laser therapy on it and told us to come back in a week. And when we were getting the follow-up, they said, we should just do a snap test just to make sure it's not Lyme or Lichia or some sort of tick-borne illness. I said, sure, that's great. And the test came back negative for all the tick-borne illnesses, but it came back positive for heartworm because it was in the microfilaria stage when we adopted her. She was ruled heartworm negative, but actually had heartworm. And if we had waited another few months, she would have died. The heartworm would have gotten to a point where it couldn't have been treated. So we got incredibly lucky there. But
yeah, and the more time you have too in a situation like that, the more options you have, right? So that's another thing that those sort of annual exams really help with. And in your situation, obviously wasn't quite a non-emergency, but still you picked up on something early so that you could treat it, right? So more options there.
Yeah, 100%. And I just thought it was such a strong call. If you're getting your pet into the vet, if you're going for the little concerns, then you're not going to have to deal with those situations where, you're potentially feeling that you're not getting optimal care from your vet because you waited until it was a big concern and you had less options. Yeah, I thought that, but yeah. Well, Jeff, this has been a fantastic discussion. I don't know if there's anything else that you want folks out there in the world to know about RuVet. I think what you guys are doing is phenomenal. We clearly need more veterinarians. We need more veterinarians, enjoying a positive work-life balance and good mental health, so that they can focus on their passion. But
I appreciate that. The only other thing I can say is if you are a vet or a vet technician and you're looking to learn more about us, you can visit us at ru.vet. That's our website, and there's links to download our app as well as to sign up there. So we'd love to talk to you more about Ru. And thank you for the...
Yeah, thank you. It's been a great conversation. And again, this is Peter Kenseth. I'm a vice president at Maya Strategy Group. We guide organizations in the pet care, animal health, healthcare, insurance space, and help them make strategic decisions based on customized primary market research. So happy to call attention to a burgeoning player in the veterinary relief space. And Jeff, thank you so much for the time, and look forward to keeping in touch going forward and seeing Ru's growth down the road.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much, Peter. Thanks for the time.
All right. Thank you.